everyone. Hello sir. So by the way, my name is Maricel Donato. So now I'm gonna explain to you the 4 kinds of LP. So first, the LP5 is the percentage tax, and the LP6 is the excise tax, and the LP7 is transfer taxation, and the last LP is the taxation and state tax. So what are you waiting for? Let's go! So now let's proceed to the LP5, the percentage of. So by the way, what is percentage of tax? So percentage of tax is a national tax is measured by certain percentage of gross selling price or gross value in money of goods sold or bartered. So they have a scope. What is this? The general or under specific percentage. So sino-sino ba ang under or sa percentage? If you are a VAT registered, so hindi mo na kailangan magbayad ng taxes. But if you are non-tax registered, that is the specific. Now let's proceed to the domestic careers and keeper of garage. So what is this? So a common career is any person or corporation, firm, or association engaged in the business of carrying or transporting passenger or goods and food, land, water, or air. That is the domestic careers and keeper of garage. Now let's proceed to the common careers. So we have 2 common careers. What is this? So car for rent, and the last is transportation. Now let's proceed to the percentage tax on international careers. So what is this? So international careers doing business in the Philippines must pay a tax of 3% of their quarterly gross received from the transporting cargo, baggage, or meals from the Philippines to other country. So they have 2 types of international careers. What is this? International. First is international air careers. Second is international shipping careers. So that's all the international careers. Now let's move to the tax on banks and non-bank financial international. So what is this? So bank refers to entities engaged in the lending of the funds obtained in a form of deposits. So they have a bank included the following. So they have 5. So first is commercial bank, savings bank, mortgage bank, development bank, and rural bank. That's 5 banks include. So now let's move to the non-bank entities whose principal foundation include the lending, investment, or placement of funds or evidences of the indebtedness. So, quasi-banking function. So, what is quasi-banking function? So, quasi-banking function refers to the borrowing of funds from 20 or 4 person or corporate lenders at any time. That's all the quasi-banking function. Now, I'm gonna proceed to LP6. So, excise tax. So, by the way, what is excise tax? So, excise tax is a hybrid consumption tax with a regulatory overture. So, they have a scope of excise tax. What is this? The Philippines version of excise tax is limited only to certain goods with the exemption of the cosmetics surgery. So they have a list of excisable article and services in the Philippines. So I have an example. They have 3 examples I already given to you. So what is this? Alcohol product, tobacco product, and petroleum product. So in nature product, they have 3 types. What's this? So now I'm gonna proceed to nature of the excise tax. So we have 3 types. What is this? So first, environmental tax, sanctuary tax, and sales tax. So in environmental tax, it is imposed on product which causes harm to the environment when product or extracted or used. For example, is petroleum product. That is an example of environmental tax. Now, let's proceed to sanctuary tax. What is sanctuary tax? So, it is imposed to restrain luxury or extravagance. They have an example of this sanctuary tax. What is this? The example is jewelry. That is the example of sanctuary tax. And now, let's proceed to sin tax. What is sin tax? It is imposed on the consumption of sins product or it is known to pose health risk. So, we have and also the example. So, the example is alcohol beverage. So, that is the example of the sin tax. Now, let's proceed to the excise tax or an indirect tax. So, excise tax or an indirect tax is ginapasa to other country. It is a levy upon products or imported. So, ginapasa siya. So, and also the excise tax as a consumption tax. What is this? Excise tax is usually levied at the point of production or next is excise tax as an additional business tax. So, business normally pays other percentage tax or value-added tax. So, that is excise tax as an additional business tax. Now proceed to excise tax as a specific and valorem tax. So what is this? It is imposed in the Philippines are primarily specific taxes. That is the excise tax as a specific and valorem tax. Now, let's proceed to the difference between excise tax and the other business tax. So, excise tax is typically a specific or per unit tax while business tax is purely ad valorem tax. That is the difference between excise tax and other business tax. So now, let's proceed to the similarities of excise tax and the other business tax. So what is this? Tax and business tax are both classified as indirect taxes, services. It is normally passed on by sellers to consumers. Now, let's proceed to the types of excise tax. So they have 2 types. So first is specific tax. And the last second is ad valorem tax. So what is specific tax? So specific tax is imposed based on weight or volume capacity. So and second is ad valorem tax. What is this? So it is imposed on selling price and other specified value. That is the types of excise. Now, I'm gonna proceed to the LP7, the transfer taxation. So, by the way, what is transfer taxation? So, transfer taxation is a person refers to any transmission of a property from one person to other. So, we have three types of transmission. So, what is this? So, first, bilateral transfer, and second, unilateral transfer, and the third last is complex transfer. So, what is bilateral? So, bilateral transfer is involved transmission of a property for a consideration, for example, sales, exchange of the property for money. And the unilateral is involved the transmission of property by a person without consideration. That is the unilateral transfer. Now, let's proceed to the complex transfer. So, complex transfer are transfer for less than full and adequate consideration. That is the types of transfer. Next is we have two types of unilateral transfer. So what is this? So donation and succession. So by the way, what is donation? So donation is gratuitous transfer of a property from a living donor. That is the donation. And the last is the succession. So succession is a transfer of the properties of the deceased person upon his death to his heir. That is the succession. And now let's proceed to the tax rules on transfer for adequate consideration. So transfer for adequate consideration are deemed pure exchange and are subject to income tax, not to transfer tax. Now, also, the transfer for less than adequate and full consideration. So what is this? So transfer for less than full and adequate consideration are into its component. What is this? The rationale, tax evasion, tax reapment, benefit of received, state partnership, whether wealth distribution, and ability to pay. So, transfer for less than adequate and full consideration. So, transfer for less than full and adequate consideration are into its component. We have 2, 4, 6 types of rationale of transfer taxation. So, first is tax evasion or minimization theory, and tax recoupment theory, benefit received theory, state partnership theory, wealth redistribution theory, and the last is the ability to pay theory. That is the rationale of the transfer taxation. Now, let's proceed to the nature of the transfer taxation. So, what is this? So, we have 6 types of transfer taxes. So, first, privilege tax, ad valorem tax, proportional tax, national tax, direct tax, fiscal tax. And that is 6 types of nature of transfer taxation. So, ad valorem tax as the amount of transfer tax dependent on the value of the property by transferred. And that is the ad valorem tax. Now, let's proceed to the proportional tax. So, what is this? So, proportional tax to transfer tax under the train law. That is the proportional tax. And now, let's proceed to the national tax. So, national tax, transfer tax are levied by the national government. That is the national. So now, let's proceed to the indirect tax. So indirect tax is the transfer taxes cannot be satisfied. That is direct tax. Now, let's proceed to the last, fiscal tax. So fiscal tax is a transfer tax levied to the raised money. That is the nature of the transfer tax. Now, let's proceed to the clarification of the transfer tax sphere and their extent of taxation. So, we have two clarification. First is resident or citizen. Second is non-resident aliens. So, what is resident or citizen? As a global transfer or that is the clarification. Now, I'm going to tackle the LP8. So, the LP8 is tackle about the taxation and state tax. So, by the way, what is taxation? So, taxation is a form of acquisition in which a person is property, right, and liabilities to the extent of the value of his inheritance and passed on the others through his death, either by his will or by a operation of the law. In succession, there are three types. So first is testamentary, second in state succession, third is mixed succession. So what is testamentary succession? So testamentary succession refers to a person who died with a will or it's a tagapagmana, right? And also the estate succession. So estate taxation is when a descendant dies without a will or a will, an individual will. The estate is distributed or lined with the civil code's difficult provision or succession or invalid. So mixed succession is the independent properties shall be transferred in a part by virtue or written with and in a part by operation of the law. And now, let's talk about the will. So, what is will? So, will is the expenses that decedent wishes for here or property should be allowed after death. So, the will, there are three types. So, holographic, notarial, and judicial. So, holographic is a will that is totally written or dated and signed by the testator or own hand. And the notarial is a will that has been notarized and signed by the decedent and witnesses. And the last is judicial, a supplementary or additional a will made after the execution of a will. So now, let's talk about the nature of succession. So by the way, what is nature of succession? So nature of succession refers to a property from a descendant individual to his successor. So in succession, there are three elements. So first is descendant, and the second is state, and the last is heirs. So what is descendant. So, descendant is donor na namatay. So, it is refers to a person whose property is passed down by a succession, whether or not the live a will. So, estate is may babayaran tayo na tax in state. The descendant property rights and liabilities that are not extinguished by his death. So, the last third is heirs. So, heirs is tagapagmana. The state defined certain individual as compulsory heirs. That's all my report. Thank you for watching.